I'm Annette Bramley. I'm the director of the N8 Research Partnership. And you can usually find me liaising with our stakeholders and doing my own research into research collaboration and how we do it more effectively across the N8.
I'm Steve Parkinson. I'm a research partnership manager at the N8, and you'll usually find me talking to any of our wonderful academics across the partnership, trying to get them together to work collaboratively, which they do surprisingly well, or being involved with meetings, any of our steering group meetings, and preparing for those, or working with some of our wonderful existing program leads to help out with any issues that arise in their programs and making sure that everything is running smoothly.
Hi, I'm Nick Goldsmink. I'm a research partnership manager with the N8, and you can usually find me on Zoom with my heading varying sizes as we have different numbers of academics on meetings trying to develop collaborative programs.
I'm Lucy, I'm the executive assistant, so I'm usually found in my spotty spare room trying to organise all the meetings that the rest of the team need. Well, supporting this team, it's always different, just different programs, different meetings every day, which compared to my old job was just churning the same stuff. So it's much more interesting from my point of view.
I would echo Lucy entirely. It's a real cliche, but no 2 days are the same in this job. Every day is different, and every day brings up new excitement and new challenges. But yeah, absolutely, it's always interesting and never dull.
Yeah, I mean, having worked on programs as diverse as arts and humanities based economic growth challenges to nuclear fusion, the sense of development and opportunities is just really strong.
For me, I think that it's the great people that are in our universities that really make the job fulfilling. So whatever level you look at, whether it's students or postdocs or technicians or the academics, or right to the vice chancellors, the most senior people in the universities, there's so much depth of experience and expertise, and they're just great people to be around. So yeah, those kind of interactions with interesting people make the job a good one for me.
No, I mean, it's really wonderful. Our policing research partnership's been going for sort of seven years now, and they've spent so much time and so much energy bringing together this great partnership of the academics and the police forces across the north of England, and it's really, I mean, it's been paying off already, but it's paying off in spades now with the fantastic award of an ESRC centre grant, so a huge 5-year centre to look at vulnerabilities in policing and policing vulnerabilities, I should say. And it's just a fantastic reward for all the effort that's gone in and all that partnership building and co-creation of research that's happened over. And these things don't happen overnight, and it's the real power of this collaboration across a region and everybody pulling in the same direction. It shows what it can deliver. So it's really wonderful, and it just shows what the potential lies in the N8.
So one of my highlights was quite early on. Well, it's kind of surreal. Was going to number 10 Downing Street with the chair of the board and the chair of the executive management group and Nick to talk to it was then Theresa May was Prime Minister, so it was to talk to one of her special advisors about the importance of innovation for the north of England, and to go and knock on the door of number 10 was something that I didn't ever expect to be doing. So yeah, that was a real kind of highlight in terms of an experience which I wouldn't have got if I'd not been with the N8.
I think one of my highlights was the look of absolute shock on several senior academics' face after we came out of the interview with HEFGE when we were successful in getting the Agri-Food Resilience Programme finance, which was an £8 million award. And they all came out looking absolutely stunned. And they said it was the worst, most horrific, most difficult interview they'd ever had to take part in for any sort of grant funding. And the highlight there was that it was such a such a difficult experience for them, yet with such a successful outcome and such a great reward for the N8 to build on?
Since I've started, it's been the 15-15 campaign, so it's been nice to see what's happened before I've started and then can see what they're looking to do ahead. So it makes it more exciting, really. Like, I'm glad I made the change.
I think one of my highlights, which is a bit of an odd one, but a bit tangential to work, is actually rediscovering the North. You know, I come from the North, but I spent a long time living in London and moved back just over sort of 5-6 years ago. And just rediscover, this job has given me the opportunity to rediscover parts of the North that I've rarely been to or never been to before. And it's just things like walking along the river in Durham and looking up to the cathedral and things like that as you walk over to the university, or discovering the city centre of Newcastle for the first time, so I'd never really been before. And it's just, it just makes you realise how lucky we are in the North of all the just the wonderful history and sort of cultural organisations and institutions, and then you're so close to the countryside most of the time as well. And it's just, that just really brings it all home to me. And this job's been wonderful in terms of, at least until the last 18 months as well, at least sort of being able to get out there and visit all our great towns and cities.
Part of the success of N8 has always been its ability to ride the crest of the wave, or to sort of build on the current zeitgeist in the sector. So in that sense, you're always having to learn new things, whether it's policy or learn about the background to a new academic area. I mean, who knew that 18 months ago we were going to start working on Net Zero North, and all of a sudden I'm a passionate advocate for decarbonisation, whereas 18 months ago I probably didn't know very much about the subject at all. So the learning curve is always there.
Yeah, I agree. And coming out of a 20-year career at the research councils, to join the N8 4 years ago, really gave me a sharp learning curve in what the world of research and innovation looks like from the perspective of the region, of universities and of companies. So I really quickly found some of my previous beliefs being challenged in a good way, and learning new things and different ways that you can achieve the same outcomes or better outcomes.
Yeah, I think for me, it's one of the things is being constantly reminded how complex the organisations we work with are. The universities are just huge. They're like little towns or cities of little fiefdoms within them, and they all work perfectly well from the outside, and then you get inside and you realise that they are very complex organisations where everybody is ultimately pulling in the same direction, but there's, as with any large organisation, there's lots of challenges, and then you multiply that by 8 just to make it a little bit more difficult for you on a daily basis. So yeah, it's like doing 4-dimensional chess sometimes, but I'm not very good at 3-dimensional chess. So
yeah, just echoing what Steve said, it's working with universities is a lot different to anything else I've ever done before. Just with the hierarchy of who everyone is and how they all work, it's just a lot to get your head around, but it's interesting.
It has a language all of its own, doesn't it, Lucy? That
yeah,
it takes a while to get your head around.
Yeah, an acronym for everything.
Yeah.
Because we've had to evolve constantly, there are certain activities that represent a new, a wholly new concept for N8 or a change of direction. I think one of the first major changes from my perspective was the funding of the Policing Research Partnership and the Agri-Food Resilience Programme. They were our first real organised attempts at doing an 8 university-wide collaboration into specific research topics. So that, in some ways, that changed the landscape. Prior to that, we'd been sort of focusing on policy, on innovation, and a little bit on being a little bit more reactive to what's happening in the sector. So that was our first real proactive move into research. And then I think, again, more recently, we've started to think about how the scale of the universities can be brought to bear on some of the real the real sticky problems that we face at the moment, whether it be climate change or making sure that all the young people in the north of England are able to have the same opportunities in life as people elsewhere in the country. These are not small challenges. They're not challenges that any single institution can sort of address by itself. They're challenges of scale that need a solution at scale. And I think, the last 18 months as we've focused on these larger programs really demonstrates the power of working together with a critical mass of researchers to face down these challenges.
Yeah, I agree, Nick. And I think I'd also add, again, when I was in the research councils, the thing that we knew at AN8 for was around equipment sharing and working together to better use the sort of investments in capital equipment that have been made over the years. And I think that's still an area where the AN8 is one of the leading collaborations in the UK. And I think we've also done some fantastic work with industry through the industry innovation forums, which is something I'm sure we'll move into the future, but it would be good to do some more of that to support the economy of the region in the future.
I think one of the things that stands out to me is if you've worked in research for any amount of time, you realise that things are things are here today and gone tomorrow, often in terms of where the funding is and where the right people are. And some of the AN8 collaborations have just, they've stood the test of time. Some of them are coming up to almost sort of 10 years now, which is incredible in the world of research. And just thinking about from personal perspective, thinking about the Bede supercomputer, for example, that was funded about 18 months ago. I mean, the AN8 had its own supercomputer previously, and then they failed to get it. They were unsuccessful getting it refunded, and it was closed down. But then within 18 months, a bid had gone in, and they'd got a new one funded, and it just showed that the resilience of that collaboration, and the partners were there, and the goodwill was there, and the years of working together just paid off immediately, and they were back again in terms of having a new regional supercomputer, and it just proves that just sort of spending that time building those partnerships, building up those working relationships just really pays off. And it's just the way that some of those collaborations just keep going year after year and going from strength to strength. It's quite inspiring, actually.
One of the things that the AN8 does, which is really hard to measure, is investing in social capital and relationships. And because it's hard to measure, it's hard sometimes to get the funding for it. But I think the sort of example that Steve just gave there, is a really just one example of the benefits of investing in relationships over a period of time, and how that is the bedrock of great collaborative activity.
The transition from supercomputer to Bede is it's almost a microcosm of the wider sort of the evolution that AN8 demonstrates. The supercomputer, the HPC, was really successful, but it was so successful that it almost put itself out of business, because each university bought their own supercomputer, and everyone's like, oh, well, we don't need an AN8 one now. But that group of researchers, they evolved, they looked at what was needed, and they came back with something that was different and relevant and topical, and so the collaboration continues. And when an opportunity for a different type of computer came around, they took it.
I think just echoing what Nick said earlier, I think in terms of the current evolution of the AN8, where we've moved on to this, looking at some of these really challenging problems, these major societal issues, whether it's achieving net zero or helping children in the north achieve their potential. I think for the next 15 years, I'd love it that we continue to do that, and we're seen as the go-to collaboration, if you like, for some of those major challenges that people, individual universities or individual organisations, or even sub-regions, cities, towns can't deliver on their own. They can't deal with these problems on their own, and they'll see the AN8, particularly in the north of England, and as the north becomes solidifies its own identity and its own approach to some of these issues that the N8 is seen as central to helping to deliver some of these, deliver against some of these challenges.
For the next 15 years, I would really like to see N8 really leading the way in advocating and demonstrating how you can create a fantastic culture for research and innovation within and between the organisations. Looking at some of the issues around research culture and really taking positive, tangible steps to address them. And then, as a result of that, demonstrating that that's massively positive for research culture, because I really believe that people don't have great ideas and they're not going to share and collaborate if they're, for various reasons, experiencing fear, whether that's fear of losing their jobs or fear of somebody stealing their ideas, or they're being bullied, or whatever it is. So I think creating a more positive research culture is something that the N8 universities can really work together on. Of course, I'd love to see us bring in some more large grants and really have contributed towards decarbonising the north of England over the next 15 years. That would be amazing. With our new collaboration with FE, I think that there's some really big opportunities in that space for us to make a difference at all levels across the region, both for the universities and for businesses in the region. And it'll make it an attractive place to have a company, because there'll be a great wealth of skilled people in the region.
There are some real challenges, and it's not just about technology, it's about people. And I think, everything that the universities can do, whether it is, research or technology or innovation, or whether it's social science or through business schools, or just through turning out undergraduates who are more carbon literate and postgraduates who have a greater understanding of the impact of their research onto, their carbon footprint. I think, the universities, have this role both in terms of educating and doing research, but they also have a role as institutions that other organisations look to. So it's not just the research that they do and the graduates that they turn out and the carbon literacy there. It's also demonstrating that you can run, a large organisation. In many cases, one of the anchor institutes of their place, and you can run that in a way that is carbon neutral, or even better, carbon negative. It's putting your money where your mouth is, really. And universities have some significant challenges to address in that regard. But hopefully, and I'm confident that those are challenges that will be overcome and solutions will be found.
I mean, from my perspective, I think the closer we get to 2050, the more the artificial target of achieving that, I hope, sort of disappears in the rearview mirror as we realise that we may be able to achieve it. But it becomes more about a mindset of changing and thinking, what's the world we want to live in, basically, what we want our planet and our relationship with our planet to look like, I think, in the future. And I think the big thing is that all of it's connected. It's not just about environment. It's not about a technology that can do something to remove carbon from the atmosphere. It's about the way people think about the world, how they interact with the world, how they interact with each other, how they use digital technologies, what the world of work is going to look like in 20, 30 years' time. I think it's all so interconnected and intertwined. And I think that realization is starting to dawn on people now. And I just hope, as we get closer to it, that it's sort of, we just have a complete change of mindset in terms of everybody starting to push in the same direction rather than in multiple different directions in terms of where we want to go.
As I say, I think that's one positive thing that's come out of the last 18 months is I think people value the world, or look at the world in a different way, and helping people to value and maybe think about not just how they get to work or what consumer goods to buy or what resources to consume, but also about where are they going to go out for a walk, where are they going to get their outdoor space, where are they going to engage with nature, and how are they going to do that. So I think perhaps these 18 months will be the a spark to make people think about the world through a different lens.
The road to 2050 also speaks to how we might do collaboration in research differently across the N8. we have seen already a large amount of transformation to digital technologies, but with increasing amounts of automation in the lab. You just have to look at Andy Cooper's robotic chemist in the University of Liverpool, which can do chemistry experiments for something like 22 hours in a day. That's going to change. Things like that are going to change the landscape of research, and sort of outsourcing the more routine tasks to robots will mean that people have more time to spend in the more kind of creative parts of their roles, thinking about the problems and making those relationships and connections which require kind of humanity to do that. So I think it's really interesting to see how the technological but the social also come together to form the kind of new landscape for collaboration across the NA over 15 years. I'm sure how whoever's in place in 15 years is doing collaboration will be very different to how we're doing it today. Partly because of climate change, the need to reduce carbon emissions, the amount of travel associated with academic collaboration will reduce significantly, and people will still travel, but they'll be more selective about when they do it and why they do it, and they'll make better use of the time when they're there, for whatever reason that they're traveling. I think that whether that's for collaboration meetings or to conduct research in a certain place, I think we'll just get to value the travel as a more limited resource and make better use of it. And I think the drive to more digital ways of working, it makes it possible to do that in ways which weren't really acceptable or weren't really taken up at scale, literally like 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it seemed that virtual and remote working would be 10 years away, and we've done 10 years of transformation in just a couple of years. It just goes to show what we can do as human beings if to adapt to a changing environment.
I think that's absolutely right, and I think there's probably a view of particularly academics outside people who don't work in university see them as stuck in their ivory tower or their concrete tower, however you want to see it, and with their head in a book all the time, and that they may be among the last people to adjust to new ways of working. But we've just seen an amazing transformation over the last 2 years of people just getting on with it and adapting and making do and finding new ways to work together, and just particularly through my work looking at bringing together this collaboration around Travel to the North. We were just getting going when the pandemic struck, and then suddenly everything stops and we have to rethink. But people just got on, and we've written a report that's coming out soon, and that was all done. It's all been done remotely. We've never been together to write that report, and it's got over 50 authors from not just the N8 universities, but across the country as well, and across loads of partner organisations across the North. And everybody's just pitched in, and it's been a brilliant effort. And we've done something in 6 months that previously ironically may have taken 18 months before, because people didn't think of ways of working quickly and rapidly and remote working and things like that. And it's just been such a step change, and it's been really refreshing to see.
No, but I would like to say that over the next 15 years, I'd like to see even more disciplines and diversity of all kinds. Different backgrounds of people coming into N8 collaborations, because it's really the case that if you have more diverse perspectives on a problem, you get better solutions and you get more creative ideas. And I just think that there's so much potential in the north of England from the mixture of universities and places and cultures and businesses, that we've got a really unique resource here that we can use, and it has potential to be really exciting.